What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Late Night Reds. I'm Skylar Webker. He's Ben Brown, and Ben, we've kind of had a weird week in Reds baseball this week. We've had a lot of players kind of coming up to form, and Noel V. Marte, and getting players back, and Tyler Stevenson, but also losing some guys, and Austin Hayes. But so we've had great storylines and great momentum, but the record wasn't great this week. Kind of going 2-4 on the week. What is it? What are your takes, I guess, on the week? What have we learned this week in Reds baseball?
I think the biggest thing we learned is that it's still a work in progress, and patience is a key. I think patience is huge. We're not going to rebuild this thing in a couple weeks. We're not going to rebuild this thing in May. We're not going to rebuild this thing. Like it's a work in progress. Guys are going to find their stride, and I think that's the biggest thing that we have to remember as Reds fans. I mean, we've been through so much mediocrity and melancholiness and all this other stuff that we tend to get super down on weeks where we don't play as well as we think we should. But we have to remember it's a work in progress. I think that we're trying to put things together. We're trying to, you have Austin Hayes get hurt, which is huge because he was playing well. So then you're back to shuffling those guys. Then you get, a doubleheader that was unexpected with weather and now you got to bring guys up and you got to move guys around. So it was just kind of a clunky week, but overall, I think that like I said last week, I think at least we have a plan. I think that there's an understanding of what's going on and how we're going to get things accomplished. And it's just not getting so frustrated with these weeks in May. We just have to weather the storm a little bit until we get some of our guys back healthy and some consistency, and we'll be fine.
Yeah, I think you're right. We have a clear plan. I trust in the direction that Tito's bringing this team along. Kind of let in, but we've had some guys kind of arrive and show up, and the main guy is Noel V. Marte. I mean, he was a guy we all kind of wrote off on this team, kind of chalked up. He was never going to get back to what he was before the PED suspension. And look, he's played his way to being on this team every day at this point, especially there at third base. He really fills in kind of a need with the lack of production or the lack of anything from Candy, who went down on the IL this week due to inflamed strikeout rate. But no, he went down with a back injury that he said. So we'll see what the team and Tito kind of do from there. But if Marte's playing the way he is, he can't justify bringing Candy back.
No, yeah, I think he's played so well. Gosh, it's just been a really pleasant surprise, especially with Candy not playing as well as we thought he would. So, to get that from him, from Marte has been huge. He's come up in some clutch situations and some key spots and driven in some key runs. Things that we expected from Candelario, right? Like those are the things that we expected from him. Not him batting 125 or whatever he was batting.
Oof, but rough.
Rough. But those are the things that we expected from him, and thank goodness Noel V. Marte is kind of rounded back into form where he was before the suspension, and is now playing the kind of baseball that we know he can play. So. And Sydney brings up a good point as well. Espinal has been huge as well. So I mean, it's been good to see those two guys kind of step up and do those things that we've lacked from the guys that we thought we were going to get it from. So
yeah, it's great to see Marte playing as well as he is, and I think we've all kind of had on our wish list this power hitting right-handed outfielder, That's the bat that this team is missing. I think if you have Marte playing the way he is, you have Hayes coming in playing, given what he's brought to this team early parts of the season, and you're getting Ty Steve back, you're getting Spencer Steer back.
Huge.
I think the narrative kind of switches, and like I kind of think the Reds need a power hitting left-handed batter in this lineup, balance out all the righties that they're getting and the high production and the righties that they're getting in Hayes and Marte and even Ty Steve coming back this week. Maybe you go get a power hitting left-handed outfielder, and who knows? Maybe that's easier to get than.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. Yeah, I mean, it definitely could be. I mean, I think that there's a lot to be said for that, especially with the guys that have stepped up. You bring up a great point, man. Ty Steve coming back with a vengeance too. I mean, he's hitting the ball really well. That was my biggest fear with him coming off the IL, was that how long was it going to take him to round into form? How long was it going to take him to get back to being the guy that we know that he can be? And obviously, it hasn't taken him very long, because he came off the IL just smacking baseball. So, I think it's been a good mixture of guys that we've not expected to do well, and guys that have stepped in a huge spot. And the chat brings up a great point, like Gavin Lux, Espinal, all these different guys that have stepped up and stepped in and have played well. Trevino, I don't want to leave Trevino off that list as well. I mean, he stepped in it, and he's been awesome. So I think it's just a feeling out process, and I think those guys that we haven't expected to play well have played really well. So it's been good to see. And that's where I'm at now, because I think that's the feeling out process. That's where this team is right now, where it's like we have guys that fill spots. We have guys that do different things well. Now it's trying to get it all together and get everybody healthy so that everybody can play their role in different spots. Because right now what's happening is that we get a good week from Austin Hayes, and now he's got a hamstring injury. We get something going with, somebody else, and then they go down. So it's like trying to get everybody healthy so that we can have the lineup that we have, thought that we were going to have going into the season, and we can get those guys back at full force.
Yeah, I think so. I think getting not only healthy, but enough playing time together with being healthy is going to really help this team. Dustin brings up a great question here. And are we surprised in the kind of lack of power from Ellie and McLean? I'd say no, because I think Tito and Chris Valleca's hitting approach, and we think either you and I talked about this or Seth and I talked about this, but their hitting approach seems much more of getting on base. They're not swinging for the fences. We're not seeing, the bandbox using the ballpark as the excuse to just swing for the fences, and then the team has a batting average of like 210. I think we see a lot of these guys intentionally just trying to get on base, because they're also like the Reds are leading the league in stolen bases as a team. I mean, they're like third. So they are, and I have a couple of other stats that are really impressive that we'll get to, but I think they're kind of, I don't want to say doing small ball, but more of playing for each other than I would say their individual accolades or success in home runs or long balls or anything like that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's definitely more about the approach change than it is anything else. I think they've gone into this season knowing that they weren't going to have a whole bunch of 35, 40 home run type dudes, but they have dudes that can get on base and wreak havoc. They got dudes on base that can run. They got dudes on base that can do different things and score. If they steal a base, can score from second, or can go from first to third. They got a whole bunch of dudes that if you give them an opportunity to get on base, they can do different things. So I think it's about uh, the idea of Tito and what he's trying to create with the lineup. I think it's more about that than it is about them trying to be big power dudes, trying to hit home runs, trying to do all those different things. I think it's more about his, I guess, philosophy of baseball, which is it's way more important to get you on base than it is for you to try to hit home runs and then strike out at a high rate or have a high swing miss rate or have all these different things. The on base percentage part of it is far more important.
Yeah, I agree. And Sydney kind of brings up a good point here. That's the way Tito has always played the game when he was in Cleveland. Think back to their World Series run. The really only power hitter that they had was Jose Ramirez. And
Ramirez, yeah.
That's not a knock on anybody else, because there were some other kind of thumpers in there with Carlos Santana was at first. Francisco Lindor was shortstop. I can't remember who the second baseman was. I think Mike Napoli was the second baseman during that run. But look, those guys, they were getting on base. Like Coco Crisp was a huge contributor to that team, and all he did in his entire career was get on base. So I think it makes sense that they're bringing that methodology here. And I think, it's way easier to find 13 guys that get on base at a high clip versus, the Yankees, the Bronx Bombers, who are paying $400 million in payroll just to have everybody in the lineup be able to hit home runs. Oh, Kipnis was playing second base. Thank you for the correction, Sydney.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that, what you see in New York it's an anomaly. You know what I mean? Like that's getting that kind of production from those many guys is not something that you see every day. And I mean, in the middle of that is the AL MVP. I mean, Aaron Judge is just a freak. So I mean,
yeah,
there's only one of him. So I mean, it's so it makes it look that much more productive when you have a guy like that in the middle hitting 60 home runs a year. So, but no, I think that it's definitely a process that Tito's trying to put together.
And I would say being too reliant on the long ball is not a great strategy, in the sense of, if you can't hit the home run, then you're basically out of every single game. Because if they find ways, if you get a ground ball pitcher out there and you're just swinging for the fences every swing, you're not you're gonna lose a lot more games, and especially as you get into the playoffs. I mean, that's kind of why we saw New York not be able to get it done.
Yeah, no, it was definitely their downfall, because it's like the team that relies on 3-point shooting, right? Like if you're hitting threes, yeah, that's great. That's a great thing to have if you're hitting threes. But if you're not hitting threes, man, you're in a lot of trouble. So it's something where if it's something where you think that they can have production, then it's fine. It's all fine and good if it's going well. But if it ain't going well, boy, it is a struggle, because it's hard it's hard to change the process of a team from one thing to another. So if you're going to be a dink and dunk, hit and run type team, you're going to be that throughout. Like, you're not going to all of a sudden change and now we're a power hitting team. Like, no, that doesn't happen. So, the Yankees are live or die home runs, hit, chicks dig the long ball, all this other stuff. But like you said, they got into the playoffs, and it's like, man, if you face 3 good starters and you can't hit no home runs, you're not going to win baseball games. So, I think it's all a part of Tito's process, and I know we talked about it, but it's something where it's something where I believe that he is trying to develop more sensible at bats that makes sense for who we are and what we are as a lineup. So.
Yeah, I would agree. I think in Tito, I trust until until he proves otherwise. Until he proves that maybe we shouldn't have trust in him. Which, for a surefire Hall of Famer, broke the Boston curse, 2 World Series rings, took the Guardians or Indians to the World Series. I think he's the right guy to have trust in.
Oh, absolutely. His record proves that he's going to be all right.
So before we get into Tito, just run the roster roulette that we've had this week. Marte, excellent. Candy to the IL. Ty Steve back. Hayes to the IL. May has been brought up with Diaz going down to AAA. Seems like Diaz is just not as sharp as he needs to be. And look, this was a conversation that Tito had with Alexis Diaz. Like, we have faith in you. We just need you to figure it out, and we can't have you figuring it out at the major league level. We need you to go get your stuff figured out in AAA. And I feel like that's such a good way to be about it. And I have a couple of other examples, but Tito has been delivering on his promise of accountability, holding guys accountable this week.
Yeah, I almost feel bad for Diaz because I know he has good stuff. Like, it's like when somebody loses, like when somebody gets the yips. You know what I mean? Like they lose. Poor Chuck Knobloch, always bring him up, but like not being able to throw the ball from second to first, like he had the yips. Guy was a tremendous baseball player, but developed the yips and couldn't make that throw. So, I'm hoping that it's something that Diaz is able to figure out when he goes down to the minors. I hope it's something that he's able to work on. And like you said, a lot of credit to Tito for realizing, hey man, like we still have faith in you, but we can't have you giving up 6 runs in a major league game. And I think that's the maturity of him as a manager. Like, you have to know when you got to pull the string on guys. You have to know when you got to say, okay, like just with Candelario. Like, Candelario's sitting on a 4-year, $35 million deal. Like, and we just send him to the minors. Like, you got to know what's best for your team, and you're not doing that guy any favors by saying, you know what, man, you're going to get it right. You just need another 70 at bats on our roster to try to get yourself corrected. That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. Let's get somebody up here, give somebody else a shot. Let them go work out what they need to work out, and then we'll figure it out from there. If they work it out, great. Then it's only going to benefit us. But we can't have you working it out, giving up 6 runs in an 8th inning when we're in a 2-1 game with an opportunity to win the game if we come up to bat and do what we need to do. When you came in, you blew the game wide open. So a lot of respect and a lot of credit to Tito and that squad for just saying, you know what, go ahead and take your time down in the minors. We understand, we get it, and hopefully you figure it out. But we can't have you figuring it out up here.
Yeah, he had that kind of conversation with Diaz. He had kind of an honest conversation with Candy, and who then, like, the day after publicly being benched, came up on the IL, which is, I don't know how baseball and the players union are not looking into that, but he had an honest conversation with Candy. Like, you're here to produce. If you can't do that, I can't afford to keep you in this lineup. And another thing that he did this week, which was such a good manager thing, is that the day that we had the doubleheader with St. Louis, Lyle Richardson was called up to help pitch in the bullpen, and then kind of immediately put back down. Tito personally texted him saying how much that means to this big league team. Like, you are part of this team, even if you're not on it here. Like, you're tremendous help. And I'm sure that meant the world to him. Like, that would fire me up if I were a minor leaguer, kind of getting that kind of treatment from the big league manager. And it's just the personal connections and the personal savvy that Tito has on this team. I think that's heavily helps the justification in any moves that he does make, while also kind of just getting guys fired up to play for the guy.
No, I agree. I think that's one of the big differences that we've noticed between him and Bell, right? Like there's a difference between being a player's manager and being a player's manager that holds you accountable. There's two, you can be a player's manager and hold people accountable at the same time. Matter of fact, a lot of players, respect that way more that you're going to hold me accountable for my actions. You're going to hold me accountable for the way I perform. And whether I'm a player's manager or not, I have to be honest with you. I have to tell you the real. It has to be what's best for our ball club, and not just me not wanting to hurt your feelings or me not wanting to make you feel like you don't belong. So I think that just comes with the maturity of being a manager. I think he's been in so many different situations and so many different things that have happened where he's managed so many different ball clubs where he just understands, he gets it. Like he gets it. That's the game of baseball. So yeah, I think he's done a tremendous job handling those things.
Yeah, and just another like example of that was the Reds called up Chase Petty as kind of the taxi man on that doubleheader, making his major league debut. It did not go very well, and I think he pitched 2 2/3 or something like that, with 6 runs on the hook, or 9 runs on the hook. And his comments after were just like, "This debut will not define his career. Like, he is still a top prospect. He is still one of the top pitchers in the game. There's a reason why the Reds gave up Sonny Gray for him. This is it was so good to hear him like kind of protect a guy that he doesn't need to protect. He's going back down to Double-A, like, or Triple-A maybe. I don't remember where Chase Petty is in the farm right now, but
yeah,
just such a good guy. Like, I want to play for Terry Francona.
Yeah, no, I think that's I know that we have talked about Chase Petty before, and I think that Francona handled that really well because, of course, people have their opinions of that, and bringing him up and being a taxi guy and all this other stuff, which that's neither here nor there. But I do think that the way that he handled it and the way that he, I guess, protected his player is huge. Like, you have to protect a guy that you feel like is going to be a future starter in this league. You gave up so much for him, and he's a guy that you feel like is going to help this team in the long run, whether it's this year or next. But you have to be able to protect that guy even when he has a bad outing. I mean, it's not ideal to come up from the minors to pitch a doubleheader game. You know what I mean? Like against the Cardinals, making your debut.
Right.
That's not ideal, especially on, like, what do you have? What, 2 days notice? 1 day notice?
Yeah, something short, super
Yeah,
short.
yeah, that's not an ideal situation of making your debut. So for him to come up here and do that, and the outing was what it was. I mean, he's a young guy. He's going to learn from it. It's going to make him better. But the big part about that is Terry Francona stepping in and saying, "Look, man, like, this is not going to be the end of Chase Petty. This is not going to be where he's going to, he's not, this is not going to be where he falls on our pecking order as far as with the Reds. Like, he's still a high prospect. He's still going to do well, and we still have faith in him." So,
yeah. And so I think Tito's righting the ship. I have total faith in anything that Tito does, and kind of smart, even though probably not fair to the minor leaguer, but bringing up a guy like that you have high, like you said, expectations for, bringing him in as a taxi squad guy, because then he doesn't take a roster spot. He can come in, you can see what he does against major league pitching, and then put him kind of back down as a little preview. I mean, kind of a smart move, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely. And I think too that there were a lot of people who felt like he would be ready. And sometimes you have to show people, like, this game of baseball is not easy. So whatever you think you see his performances are in Double-A or Triple-A, like, you're still, now you got to come up here and face major league hitters. And that is a difficult situation to be in, especially, like we said, he had 1 or 2 day notice. I mean, it's he's you get to get a chance to look at a guy. Like you said, I think it's smart that we did that, but it's also too it's It's seeing what he needs to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's good for him. I think that's character building when you get to come in and be like, okay, I know that I can't come in and just do what I do on a major league roster. I have to be able to fix things. These guys make adjustments. They understand. They get film. They get video. They come in and they work, and they know everything that I was going to do, and they hit the ball hard. So now what am I going to do to counteract that? And I think that's good for him as well. So
I agree. One comment that Pat had in here with if there's any interest in Leody Taveras, who kind of got cut from the Rangers today. I would have interest, but I would not make that the marquee move on the team. So he's a switch hitting outfielder and a very good defender. But his OPS plus is kind of hovered in the 90s. He's had one season in 2023 with a 101 OPS plus. To me, he would be probably above, I would say maybe Dunn, Hurtubise, Callahan era, but I would not want that to be my starting guy on the roster moving forward.
No, I would agree with that. I mean, I think that's not your problem solver if we're saying
Mm-hmm.
that. Like, he's not the guy where you're like, oh yeah, he's the answer to our prayers as far as securing our outfield. But like you said, I do think he could, if he's with him being cut or released or however they say it, but
waived or whatever.
Waived, yeah. But I do think that he's a player that if you're looking for a guy to kind of play backup role as an outfielder, switching outfielder is not a bad thing to get.
Mm-hmm.
But it just depends on the fit, right? I mean, it has to fit what we're trying to do, and does he fit the plan?
Right. So I'm for it if they can get him, but I like we just said, I don't think he's the problem solver of the outfield. So I would say, we kind of talked about how weird the week was. The record wasn't great, but let's get into some of the things that really are impressive for this team. I have a couple of stats pulled up. This is before today's game. So they were plus 37 in run differential. That's fifth best in the NL. And you got to think the NL's full of heavy hitters like the Cubs, the Dodgers, the Giants, the Padres. Those are actually the teams that are ahead of them. So, I mean, to be fifth best in run differential, and they're not hitting home runs, they're kind of death by 1,000 paper cuts. I mean, this team is playing for each other. That's impressive to have that positive run differential, that big of a run differential this early in the season, and be in kind of the area of those top teams.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's huge, and also I think that speaks to how well our pitching staff has pitched. I mean, I think that I think that speaks well to that. There's a lot of different things that play into that, and getting on base is huge. Pitching well is huge. It's not about. I mean, it is about how many runs you score, but you also have to keep people off the board.
Yeah.
So I think that we've been able to do that really well, outside of a few outings here or there. But I think that bodes well for us. I think that shows that we can win games by a large margin. We can win games by a tight margin, and I think that shows that we have the ability to be able to win it on both ends. We can win it offensively. We can also win it defensively and pitching. So I think that's a good stat.
Yeah, and pair that with they're kind of in the sixth, seventh in the next categories of batting average, on base percentage, and OPS. They're fifth and seventh in basically all of those categories, which is a huge upgrade for kind of this team, because we're used to being towards the bottom of that list in those categories, because the offense has just been putrid for the past couple of years. So to see them in the top 10, the top echelon of those significant categories, that's a great change of pace. I know the record is the record. They're still above 500, which is still new to us. But we're seeing these statistically, they are better and better than probably. I can't remember the last time that they've had a team that hit as well as this team hits, and pitches as well as this team pitches.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just nice to see us have positive numbers. Like, it's good to see. You know what I mean? Like you said, usually we're by this time we're like 26th, 27th. You're like, gosh dang, man. Like we don't hit the ball well. We don't pitch the ball well. There's nothing we do really well. So, and I think that's part of the approach, right? Like we've already talked about that. It's part of the game plan. It's part of the approach of those guys, and being able to get key quality hits at times. And also, too, I think a big part of that is we've had guys step up, like we talked about before. Like we knew that Noel Marte was good, but he's hit the ball really well. Trevino stepped up. You get Tyler Stevenson back. Austin Hayes was huge. So, I mean, I think we've had different guys step up and step in who in key spots have been able to do some key things and who have led to this, us being 6th or 7th in batting average and on base percentage and all those different things. So I think there's a lot of different things that have played into that and that have helped us get to those spots.
And kind of the last offensive number, they're 3rd in the league in runs. Third in the NL in runs, which is
crazy.
Great. That is crazy, right? Like this team's not hitting home runs. They're kind of towards the bottom of the league in home runs, yet they're 3rd in runs. That's the run production of chaos on the base pass, the just getting the guy over, just getting on base yourself. I think that's going from 1st to 3rd. All the points you kind of made earlier, like. This is kind of the stuff that's impressing us, is that they're in the top end of the league in a lot of these statistical categories, even though, hey, the record this week wasn't great. Wasn't a great week record-wise. Pat had in here like the rain delay and cancellation and just a wet week here in Ohio was not ideal for any of these guys.
Yeah, it was not good at all. I mean, the weather here has been terrible.
It's been great because I planted new grass. That part.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, now that part's been awesome.
It's been terrible.
Yeah, but for outdoor sports, it's been awful. So, no, I think that all that, like we talked about before, man, it's just part of who we are and I guess, what our team goals are going to be moving forward. Like what's our mission statement, which is, we get on base. We're not going to hit long balls. We're not going to do these different things. We're going to play quality baseball. We're going to get on base. We're going to cause chaos, and we're going to try to score runs that way. Which, like I said, that's kind of a winning formula because you've seen it done before with different teams. So yeah, I think that's a good number to see. 3rd in runs is impressive. I mean, especially for a team that doesn't hit a lot of home runs.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get to the other side of the ball, the pitching. I'm going to kind of list these off here. They are 4th in ERA. They are 1st in WHIP. They are 1st in opponent batting average, and they are 2nd in walks. So they are not letting guys get on base. The other team can't hit off our guys. For the most part, I think that after today's game, it was kind of in this week, honestly, it was a little weird, and they're not giving free passes to walk guys at all. So, I mean, the pitching has been fantastic, even with guys struggling. Like, we saw Lodolo get roughed up. He had a rough outing from Petty. We've seen, Ashcraft got hit up today. We've seen Diaz give up, a game. So with those struggles, a lot of good things that we see just statistically looking at the stat sheets and how they match up with the other teams in the league.
I wonder when the last time was we were even just taking the one step of being fourth in ERA. I wonder when was the last time we were top 15 in ERA as far as our staff. Like it's had to been a long time. Like
Probably that year where it was Sonny Gray, Castillo, Maui,
yeah,
and Bauer was on the roster. I mean, that was a kind of a four-headed monster in its own, but still short-lived, and the offense couldn't do anything to support that.
Support it, right? Yep. So, but no, it's been cool to see, even though like you get like you said, Lodolo he's been kind of he started off hot, but he's kind of been up and down the last couple starts. Hunter, it was great to see Hunter Green back to being Hunter Green, yesterday. Which he was freaking dominant. But yeah, even with that, I think we've had, I guess, consistency with our starting lineup. Like I think we've been so consistent. And people will say, "Oh man, well we give up this many runs." Like to me, if you give up under 4 or at 4, under 4, you still have a chance to win a baseball game.
Mm-hmm.
Your offense has to do something. So when we lose a game 4-1, I don't particularly put that on the pitching. Like if we score 4 runs, if we're within a grand slam of winning a game, not saying that that's going to happen, but you still have an opportunity to win the game.
Right.
I just don't put that all. I just don't put that all on the pitching. So when a starter gives up 4 runs or 3 runs, I'm like, on average we should score at least 4, if not 5, to win the game. But
right,
so I think that as long as your starting pitching keeps you in the game and keeps you able to win games, then that's what I look at. And when you're at a 3.86 or
3.6?
Yeah, 3.6. Like that's under 4 runs a game, dude. Like that's impressive. You should win a lot of baseball games under 4.
Yeah, I mean, and we saw, I can't remember, I think it was today, where tied game, 1-1. I think it was the bottom of the 7th, 2 outs, 2 runners on base, 3-run jack. And then that's a 4-1 loss. And that feels heavier than, what really happened, or that feels heavier than it should if you're just looking at the stat sheet. But if you're watching the game and if you see what this team is doing in 9 in and 9 out on the stat sheet, this team is going to win a lot of baseball games and hopefully a lot of playoff baseball games.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that is, we always talk about that pitching and defense, right? Pitching and defense, pitching and defense. That's going to keep you in. You're going to win a lot of games that way. So if you're giving up under 4 runs a game, you're going to win a lot of baseball games. And even to say go further, you're going to win a lot of, like you said, playoff baseball games, because when it gets down to playoff time, hopefully if you're in that spot, those are the teams that make a run, or who have good starting pitching, good relievers, and they play solid defense.
Yeah, that's the hope, is to be a good playoff baseball team. It's going to be harder to win the division than we probably thought, because the Cubs are actually really good this year.
Yeah, they are. That's kind of scary, actually. Like I don't like it when the Cubs are good.
Me neither. I mean,
it's weird.
Their outfield looks legitimate with Pete Crow Armstrong, who's really came into form. Kyle Tucker trade is looking great. And then they have the Japanese outfielder that they got, Suzuki. No.
Yeah.
Cubs. Oh, their starter left today. Oof. Imenago left today. You all know what I'm talking about. We don't even get into the Cubs roster.
Yeah.
They're looking like a good team. And for the Reds to be, what are they, 2.5, 3 games behind? two and a half games behind, but still second in the division after a bad week. That feels pretty good. Like we keep saying and keep harping on. What were we last year? Last? Tied for last? Fourth? With that already kind of feeling out of reach?
Yeah. No, it's yeah, we talk about that. We talked about that last week about the plan and the process and trusting that and you know, to be where we are right now, like I'm excited because, it's just something where you just feel like we're right on the verge. We're right there. I feel like we're right there. Like it's about just consistency, stringing wins together. It's about getting your guys healthy. It's about getting consistent starting pitching. Like I feel like Hunter Green is super consistent. I'm hoping Lodolo will start to figure it out a little bit more, but he started off really well. Singer will be well. Abbott's going to be fine. It's those guys and your relievers, being consistent. It's putting consistent efforts together day after day and stringing them up. And I think that's hard because, as soon as we think we're going to get healthy, somebody goes down. It's
Yeah, I know.
We're thinking, man, because think about it, we were talking about this last week. Man, we get Ty Steve back. We got Hayes, we got Lutz, and then Hayes goes down. You're like, gosh dang it. Like that was, having him and Ty Steve in the lineup again is huge. But you lose one of those, and now you're back chasing again. So hopefully this 10-day stint gets Hayes straight and we can be back to full strength. And then I don't think we've played one game where we've had our starting 9 projected starters in a game. Like Ty Steve started the season on the IL. Hayes started the season on the IL. Then Hayes comes back. Then Hayes goes back on the IL. And we get Ty Steve. Candelario's now hurt. Like we haven't had a single game where you're like, okay, the projected starters that we saw going into the season actually play.
Yeah. And look, the Reds could have a spoil of riches here soon because they're talking about CES coming back soon. And then they got CES. If CES can come in and be what we need him to be or what we expected to see out of CES, just like how Marte came up and is finally looking like what we expected for Marte. Like that's why he was the key piece in the Castillo trade. Now you're like, all right, you have Lux, you have Steer, you have Ty Steve, you have CES. You want to keep Trevino in the lineup as much as possible. That's 5 guys that kind of fit 3 positions. Then you have Hayes. If Hayes comes back, and you got to keep Hayes in the lineup. Those are great problems to have. Those are the spoils of riches that we would like to have in this roster construction. But that's all hope. If CES comes back and looking the way he needs to, if he's not, I'm sure Tito's not going to have a problem optioning him down to AAA to get it figured out.
Yeah, especially with Spencer Steer now playing like Spencer Steer. You know what I mean? Like it gives you that flexibility with CES if he's not going to be able to get the job done. It's been nice to see Spencer Steer almost kind of get healthy again because he's really hitting the ball hard. Like he's hit the ball really hard this past week. So to see that, it kind of gives you that flexibility, man. Like CES needs to get on board or then Steer will be our all-time first baseman. It's right there. So I'm hoping that CES is able to come in and provide a little pop, and that just makes us better.
Even if he isn't, you still have Lux, who's been really well. If you get Hayes back, you don't have a defensive position for Lux. You have the DH. You don't want to, but you're getting Ty Steve back, and he's been our DH right now because you want to keep Trevino's bat in the lineup. Then you have Steer, who could be if you put Stevenson at first and Steer, you still have a little bit of flexibility now, but you get so much more flexible and agile as soon as if CES can be CES.
Yep. No, absolutely. I think it makes us that more potent, and we're able to match up to when you have more people to be able to plug in a spots, you're able to match up with other rotations better.
Hmm.
It gives you those options of being okay. Well, this guy doesn't hit this guy well, so we can put this guy in, give this guy the day off because he doesn't hit him well. Let's play this guy here. It just gives you a ton of flexibility.
Absolutely. So with that, we can go ahead and get out of here. Hey guys, if you're gonna plan on going to any Reds games this year, download SeatGeek, use our code Riverfront to get $20 off your first purchase. I mean, that's probably about the price of the tickets right now. So you can go to the
Hmm.
game on us. Use the code Riverfront through your SeatGeek account and get $20 off. We welcome everybody to join our ever-growing family of Cincinnati sports fans through our Patreon. It's just patreon.com/riverfrontcincy. If you go ahead and give us a like and subscribe on YouTube so that you can catch all the episodes when they get released, not just of Late Night Reds, but of Welcome to the Jungle and the Riverfront Red Show and so much more. Honestly, just getting the invite to the Slack channel is worth the Patreon. I think it's like $2 or $3 a month. It's
Yeah,
so much fun over there. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Please subscribe to the audio podcast for free on all of your podcast platforms. We're on all of them. Give us a rating and review, tell a friend. Tell us how the show is. We want to make the best show for you. So tell us how we can do that. So for that, he's
absolutely.
Ben Brown. I'm Skylar Webker. We'll see you later, everybody.